What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka New York Prepper, and in this video I'm going to do a penetration test of some buckshot that I have, and I'm going to be shooting some buckshot into this plywood that you see here. Alright, this is 1/2-inch plywood, okay? And we're going to see how many sheets of plywood these shells will go through, this buckshot will go through. Alright, so just so you guys can see, I'm going to take a measurement right in front of you. Alright, so here we have 1/2-inch plywood, alright, that I just got at my local home improvement store, okay? And what I did was I screwed them together. So here we have 12 sheets of 1/2-inch plywood, alright, and together, if I measure all these sheets of plywood, it's about 6 inches of plywood, alright? So we're going to be shooting the buckshot into this plywood here, and we're going to see how many sheets of plywood the buckshot is going to go through. Okay, so that'll be interesting. The buckshot that we're going to be testing is, the main thing is I want to test the difference between lead and copper plated buckshot. I want to see if there's a difference in how well copper plated buckshot will penetrate versus lead buckshot. You know, typically when companies make buckshot copper plated, they do it for more penetration and more accuracy. So we're going to see if copper plated buckshot will penetrate deeper than lead buckshot, and we'll see how much deeper the copper plated buckshot will penetrate, and we'll also see how well the copper plated buckshot resists deformation as compared to traditional lead. You know, we'll see if there's a big difference between copper plated buckshot and lead in terms of, you know, will it flatten out as much as the lead, or will it retain a pretty round shape, okay? So that'll tell us how hard that buckshot is. And so we're gonna compare 2 3/4 and 3-inch shells. All right, so here I have, going from left to right, these are the 4 shells that we're going to test. Okay, so here we're going to start with, all right, the green shells are lead and the red shells are copper plated and buffered. All right, so the lead shells, the first lead shell, we're just going to do a standard 2 3/4-inch double-aught buck, and this is a Remington Express. It has 9 pellets. It's a double-aught buck, as you can see here, 9 pellets, Remington Express. This is, you know, your standard buckshot, and it's traveling at 1325 feet per second based on the manufacturer's, you know, what it says on the box. The next one we're going to test is actually 3-inch triple-aught lead buckshot. This has 10 pellets. It's a 3-inch shell, and it has triple-aught buck, okay? All right, so we're going to test double-aught and triple-aught in lead, and then we're going to go double-aught and triple-aught in copper-plated. So the next one we have is a new popular shell that came out in the last couple of years, and it's the Federal Tactical Flight Control. This one is 2 3/4. It's a flight control wad, so it's a special wad that keeps the buckshot together, so it keeps a tight pattern at longer distances. And I'm also going to be doing a patterning test as well of this shell, and we'll see how well it patterns out of my Remington 870 cylinder bore shotgun. And I'll show you the shotgun that I'm shooting these shells out of. So this is just 2 3/4 double-aught copper plated. All right, this is the box here. This is double-aught Federal Premium Flight Control. It has 9 pellets, and it's traveling at, let's see, what is it traveling at? 1145 feet per second. And it's got a flight control wad in it, okay? And it's copper plated, just so you guys can see. It's a patented flight control wad, provides controlled release of shot for the tightest patterns and most pellets on target. Copper plated buffered shot for dense, tight, and uniform patterns, okay? All right, so we'll see how this flight control 2 3/4 inch tactical copper plated compares to the standard, lead 2 3/4. All right, we'll see how much better the copper plated versus the lead is in the 2 3/4 version, and then we're going to go to the biggest one here, which is the Winchester XX Magnum buckshot. This is a 3-inch triple-aught buck, and it's copper plated. Okay, and it's traveling at 1225 feet per second, and it's 10 pellets. All right, so we're going to test these shells. We're going to shoot them at the plywood and see what happens. So it's going to be interesting. What I'm really curious about is to see how the traditional 2 3/4 inch lead will penetrate as compared to the 3-inch copper plated triple-aught buck. That's going to be interesting to see the difference. This is going to show us how triple-aught buck can penetrate versus double-aught buck. It's going to show us how copper plated will penetrate versus non-copper plated. And it's also going to show us how 3-inch versus 2 3/4 inch will penetrate. Okay, so I hope you guys enjoy this video, and thanks for watching. Alright guys, so just to show you, here we have the sheets of plywood, and I'm going to measure it for you. It's 6 inches of plywood roughly. Okay, so 6 inches of plywood. We got 12 sheets of 1/2 inch plywood here. And what I did was, as with my other penetration tests, I screwed them together in sections. So this way I don't have to unscrew all of them to see where the pellets are, So like, if I can unscrew these sections and see, okay, did it make it through the first section? All right, good. So then we go to the second section, all right, and we see the second block of 4 sheets of plywood. If it didn't pass through the second block, then we know that it's in the second block here. We can see, we can take this one apart rather than having to take all of them apart, all right? And all I did was I just screwed the plywood together with some regular 2-inch screws every foot all around. And we're going to shoot into this plywood. So stand by, guys, and I hope you enjoy the video. And the shotgun we're going to be shooting these loads out of is my Remington 870 home defense, all right? Don't mind the washing machine here. I'm kind of in a rush, and I didn't want to set up all my studio equipment and everything like that, but this is just a Remington 870. It has a 18-inch barrel. It's got a cylinder bore, so there's no choke on it at all. Okay, it's just a standard cylinder bore. All right, just a regular Remington 870 with some upgrades that I made to it. All right, so stand by for the test, and I hope you guys get something out of it. Alright guys, so the first shot we're going to take is with the Winchester XX 3-inch triple-aught buck, copper plated, and I'm going to be shooting from 5 yards. Wow, that was crazy. Knocked the whole thing over. All right, guys, now we're going to shoot the 3-inch triple-aught Remington Express. This one is the lead, 100% lead. Let's see what happens. All right, guys, so now we're going to shoot the Remington Express Buckshot double-aught, 9 pellets, and it's just basic lead buckshot. All right, this is just a standard 2 3/4 inch lead buckshot, double-aught buck, 9 pellets, and it's got some buffering in there, all right, to keep the pattern tight. So we're going to shoot this one now, and let's see what happens. All right, the recoil is much less on the double-aught buck than the 3-inch. The recoil is much more manageable, and the blast is a lot less. So now we're going to do our final shot with the, this is the federal flight control. This one's copper plated, 2 3/4, double-aught buck, and it's got the flight control wad. So this will be our last shot, and then we're going to take the boards apart, and we'll see what kind of penetration we got on these shells here. All right, so stand by. That was a pretty interesting result. The flight control, the pattern was so tight that the wad didn't even, the wad actually got embedded in the wood. So I'm going to take another shot. This time it's going to be at a little bit further. All right, so this way we don't get that wad embedded. So let me do another shot. So stand by for that. All right, guys, so I'm going to take another shot with the Federal double-aught buck flight control copper plated a little bit further back because the flight control was too tight, the pattern was too tight. So this way I'll have 2 patterns to judge the penetration from, okay? So I'm going to go back to 10 yards, and I'm going to shoot at 10 yards now, all right? So let's see what happens. All right, guys, so here's my shooting. On the top here, this was the 3-inch triple-aught buck, copper plated. This was the Winchester XX. All right, this was the, I'll show you guys the patterns. This is at 5 yards. Moving on, and what is that? Maybe, it's probably about a 6-inch group there at 5 yards. Moving on to the 3-inch triple-aught buck, Remington Express lead. This is the grouping we had at 5 yards, a little bit tighter than the Winchester XX, which is pretty interesting. So pretty good group for the Remington Express. All right, so this was the lead. So we have copper, lead. These are both 3-inch. And then moving down to the 2 3/4, we have the flight control, the Federal flight control, copper plated. And you can see my first shot here, the wad actually got stuck in the wood, which is pretty interesting. And it's trying to pull it to get it out, and it's not coming out. It's embedded in there. So I took another shot at 10 yards. All right, and you can see how tight the grouping is here. So you know, I'm gonna see, we're gonna see if, you know, being up close may actually have less penetration, because the wad, the pellets don't separate from the wad yet, you know, but we'll see. So this one was 5, this one was 10. All right, but look at how tight that group is, guys. That's, you know, extremely tight. This is good for SHTF, you know, if you have this kind of buckshot. The recoil was very low on these 2 3/4. And then here we have the standard 2 3/4 double-aught buck lead, Remington Express. And this is the shot, you know. So we're gonna unscrew these plywood, and we'll see how many boards it went through, but there's no pass through on the back. It didn't go through all 12 sheets of plywood. So and it kind of messed up my sawhorses here. The first 2 shots, it knocked it over here and bent my sawhorse. So it's going to be another good thing these are cheap, so I can just easily replace it. So all right, guys, so stand by for me unscrewing these, and we'll see how many sheets of 1/2-inch plywood the buckshot went through. All right, and what I'm going to also do is I'm going to pull out the pellets and look at the deformation and see how badly deformed they got. And I'm also going to see how much weight they retained. I'm going to weigh the buckshot pellets and see what kind of weight retention they had. All right, so stand by, guys. All right, guys, so we got some pretty interesting results. So the buckshot did not make it past 4 sheets of plywood screwed together. Okay, the only buckshot that went through the 4th sheet of plywood was the Federal flight control. All right, look at that, the flight control 2 3/4 double-aught buck. You can see it punch through the 4th sheet of plywood, and it got a little bit embedded in the 5th sheet. Okay, check that out, guys. And I'm going to try to pull that mass of copper and lead out, but it's pretty interesting. All right, so none of the buckshot except for the Federal flight control made it through the 4th sheet of plywood. This is the 4th sheet of plywood here, and none of them passed through except for the Federal flight control. And then now you can see some of them made dents and look like they were going to pass through at some point. You can see here, this is the Federal flight control at 10 yards. It made a little bit of a indentation there, and it dented the wood here. Okay, but this is the flight control at 5 yards, and you can see it passed through the 4th sheet of plywood and got stuck in the 5th sheet, and it actually dented the 6th sheet of plywood. All right, so here's the 5th sheet of plywood, and the flight control, Federal flight control double-aught buck, dented the 6th sheet. This is the 6th sheet of plywood here. It left a little dent, but it did not pass through. All right, so this is interesting results here. I expected the buckshot to go through more sheets of plywood, but I'm wondering if because I screwed the plywood together that it made it more difficult to pass through the plywood. You know, if I spaced the plywood out like 1 or 2 inches apart, maybe it would have penetrated more sheets of plywood. I don't know. You know, but that's still, you know, that's a good amount of wood. You know, that's 2 inches of wood, and plywood is stronger than regular wood. So, all right. So I'm just going to go through sheet by sheet to show you guys the results of each one. And what I'd like to do is do another experiment, but the next experiment, I'm going to do 3-inch double-aught buck versus 3-inch triple-aught buck, okay? And I'm going to see if the double-aught penetrates better than the triple-aught, because with the interesting results here also was that the one that I thought would have the most penetration would be the 3-inch triple-aught buck, copper plated, the Winchester Double X, but this one actually had the worst penetration compared to even the standard lead 2 3/4 double-aught buck. It actually had worse penetration. Initially, I thought triple-aught buck would have better penetration, especially the 3-inch triple-aught buck. But now I'm starting to think about it. The double-aught buck is a larger diameter pellet, and because it's a larger diameter pellet, it's not going to penetrate as well. All right, so now obviously triple-aught buck would do a ton more damage than double-aught buck, but seems like double-aught buck would penetrate better than triple-aught buck. So the next test, I'm going to compare double-aught to triple-aught, okay, with 3-inch shells. All right, I'm going to shoot 3-inch double-aught and then 3-inch triple-aught, and we'll see the difference. But very interesting results. You know, I thought the triple-aught buck would penetrate the most, but it actually didn't. So it was actually the 2 3/4 inch shells that penetrated better. So I'm just going to go sheet by sheet to show you guys. So here we have this is the Winchester Double X. This was at 5 yards. So, you know, decently tight pattern. This was at 5 yards. This is the 3-inch triple-aught buck, copper-plated Winchester Double X. So you can see it went through the first sheet here. All right, and complete pass-through on the first sheet. All right, you can see that. All right, so it went through the first sheet. Then it went through the second sheet, and then we started to have some pellets getting embedded inside of the plywood on the third sheet. Okay, so the third sheet of plywood, we already had some pellets. We have some pellets here embedded, and some of them deeper than others. And again, plywood is not the best comparison because plywood has variations. You know, there's knots. It's not a stable media like ballistics gel, but you can see there's some pellets stuck in the third sheet of plywood. Okay, and so I'm going to try to dig these out. And now moving on to the fourth sheet of plywood, it did not pass through the third sheet. Okay, it just left a dent here, okay, which I thought it would have blown through that. All right, so the triple-aught buck only made it through 2 sheets of plywood, got stuck in the third sheet. This is the Winchester Double X triple-aught copper-plated buffered buckshot, all right, 3-inch. All right, it got stuck in the third sheet of plywood. All right, moving on to the next one, which is the 3-inch Remington Express triple-aught lead. This is just standard lead buckshot, and you notice it actually has a tighter pattern than the Winchester does. Very interesting there. And what's interesting is the Winchester costs twice as much, so I'm not really too happy with the Winchester right now. I'm a little bit disappointed. So you can see this is the second sheet of plywood, passed through the second sheet here, and so you can see some of the lead, how it expanded much more. All right, look at the expansion. This is the copper pellet here, the copper triple-aught buck, and this is the lead. All right, you can see the lead expanded, you know, quite a bit. I mean, that's probably 1/2 inch of expansion here, big chunks of lead in there. All right, so this is the third sheet of plywood, and actually this is the fourth sheet of plywood, and a little pellet got stuck over here in the fourth sheet. Okay, so the triple-aught lead buckshot actually from Remington Express actually penetrated better than the copper plated, and I don't know if that's just because of misstating of velocities. You know, maybe Winchester doesn't have the correct velocity stated on their box, but I find it interesting that the lead triple-aught buck penetrated better than the copper triple-aught buck. All right, it could also be that there was some knots in the wood, you know, which could have slowed down these pellets here. Maybe there was some knots in one of these layers here that could have been like a knot or something, but I doubt it because all of them got stopped, you know. So, you know, if there was like a knot or something, it maybe would have stopped 2 or 3 pellets, but not all of them. All right. So, and look at that big hunk of lead in here, big chunk of lead. I'm going to try to get that out. So, all right. So the 3-inch lead Remington Express triple-aught buck went through 3 sheets of plywood, got stuck in the 4th sheet. All right, so now the very interesting results we had with the flight control. I took 2 shots with the flight control. This one was at 5 yards and this one was at 10 yards, and you can see it left a little dent from the wad. The wad hit so hard that it actually dented the plywood here. It's very interesting. And then it got embedded in the first sheet here. I'm going to try to get that out, but it's pretty stuck in there, you know. It's not going anywhere. So that's the first sheet, 2 3/4 inch double-aught flight control Federal. All right, copper plated. First sheet. All right, blew through the second sheet. Look at the wad is stuck in here. The flight control wad is embedded. I'm going to try to dig that wad out for you guys, but it's stuck in the first back side of the first sheet. Look at that big hole. Look at the big hole that in the second sheet here. I mean, that's absolutely monstrous hole. You know, I could fit my thumb in there actually. It's pretty crazy. I want to show you guys I can fit my thumb in this hole. All right. So all the flight control concentrated all of the pellets, all 9 pellets went right into this hole here, all right? And this was the one that actually had the most penetration of all, which is very interesting. And that makes sense because it's all concentrated in one area. And then at 10 yards, it looks like it passed through the second sheet. Moving on to the third sheet. The flight control continues to pass through the third sheet, and also at 10 yards it's still passing through. Okay, so let's go to the fourth sheet now. Okay, and you can see it's passed through the fourth sheet here, and at 10 yards it got stuck. Most of the shot got stuck in the fourth sheet of plywood. All right, you can see these pellets here. All right, you can see the back of this pellet. I'll try to pull that out. You can see the back of the pellet. This was the flight control at 10 yards, and that's the flight control at 5 yards. All right, and moving on to the 5th sheet. Okay, the flight control. You can see that big hole that it left in the 5th sheet, or you know, the exit hole on the 4th sheet is interesting. It looks kind of like a bullet hole almost, and very, very interesting. And here we have the pellets from at 10 yards. They left an indentation, all right, and they dented the 5th sheet of plywood, and then the flight control dented the 6th sheet of plywood, and it got stuck in the 5th sheet here. Okay, so it seems like the flight control seems to have the best penetration out of all of the shotgun shells that I tested. seems to have the best penetration is the Federal Flight Control. And I think a lot of that is because, first of all, it's copper plated, but also the shot is more concentrated into a small area, so it has better penetration. All right, so now finally we're just gonna I'm gonna show you guys the classic 2 3/4 inch double-aught buck lead. This is Remington Express. This one was going at 1325 feet per second. And this one was 9 pellets. Also, the flight control was 1145 feet per second, so it was actually the slowest velocity out of all of them. Also 9 pellets. The 3-inch both were at 1225 feet per second, the Remington and the Winchester, and they were at 1225 feet per second. And also both 10 pellets. All right, so finally we're going to move on to the standard 2 3/4 inch double-aught buck lead, and this is the Remington Express. All right, guys, so here's the first sheet. I turned this upside down so it'd be easier for you guys to see. First sheet, second sheet, third sheet, and it actually got stuck. Some of the shot got stuck in the fourth sheet here. You can see there's a little, one pellet made it through. All right, one pellet made it through to the fourth sheet, and then 2 of them dented. So actually the 2 3/4 inch lead Remington Express actually did better than the 3-inch copper plated triple-aught buck. And also this was a higher velocity, so that could have been why. 1325 feet per second, it's a higher velocity, so that could have been why. But so and let's just see the 5th sheet of plywood. It did leave a small dent here in the back of the 4th sheet. Okay, right here. This was the standard 2 3/4 inch double-aught buck Remington Express. All right, so very interesting results, guys. Very interesting results. Again, I'm going to try some more double-aught buck penetration testing and compare it to, I'm going to try to compare 3-inch double-aught buck versus 2 3/4 inch double-aught buck and see if there's really a big difference between them as far as penetration goes. I don't think it's going to be a huge difference. It may be like 1 or 2 sheets of plywood, but nonetheless, very interesting results, you know. So I'm going to try to dig out some of these pellets for you guys and show you what they look like, and you know, weigh them. I'm going to weigh them with my scale, see what kind of weight retention they had, how they expanded, and things like that. So this was a very good test, you know. I'm just curious if I did another test with the plywood spread out rather than screwed together tightly, if they would have penetrated more sheets of plywood. But I mean, you know, still 3 or 4 sheets of plywood, that's a lot of wood, you know. So, all right, so to sum it up, the flight control had the best penetration. It penetrated through 5 sheets of plywood, and at 5 yards. And at 10 yards, it penetrated through 4 sheets of plywood, okay? The standard 2 3/4 inch double-aught buck lead Remington Express shot performed second best, and it went through, performed the same as the 3-inch triple-aught buck. So the Remington Express double-aught buck 2 3/4 had the same penetration as the 3-inch triple-aught buck, which is interesting. However, the triple-aught buck did do more damage, even though the 2 3/4 went through the same amount. You know, the hole that was left from the 3-inch was a lot bigger than the 2 3/4. So here's the one pellet made it through. The double-aught buck 2 3/4, one pellet made it through to the fourth one. And same thing with the 3-inch triple-aught buck, the lead from Remington Express, but you can see it's a lot bigger. The pellet down there, that's a big mass of lead in there, and then 3 pellets made a dent. So, but they actually performed better than the one that I thought would do the best would be the 3-inch copper-plated triple-aught buck, the Winchester Double X. That one penetrated the worst. So that's kind of surprising. So, all right, so that's pretty much it for the test now. All right, so I'm gonna pull some of the pellets out, and we'll see what the pellets look like and how they retain their shape and what kind of expansion they had. So stay tuned, guys. All right, guys, just wanted to show you how the Federal flight control turned into a slug at close range. Look at all these pellets grouped together, and they're fused together into a giant mass of copper and lead. All right, just wanted to show you guys that. Here's my thumb for comparison. So it's quite a big chunk of lead. I was trying to get it out, but it's just too much work trying to get that massive lead out. But it basically, the flight control turns into a slug at close range. It's pretty cool. I was impressed with the flight control. I was able to dig out the pellets, and we're gonna go and take a look at the pellets and see how they deformed and weigh them and see what kind of weight retention we got on them. So stand by. All right, guys, so I'm back at the New York Prepper reloading bench, and I've recovered some of the pellets from the plywood. It was hard to recover a lot of them because they were just so embedded inside of the plywood. So, you know, I would have had to spend, you know, who knows how long trying to dig them out. So, but I managed to recover some of the buckshot from the plywood. The ones that were easiest to recover from the plywood were obviously the copper-plated pellets, which you see here on the right side. Here's the triple-aught copper-plated Winchester Double X, and then the Federal flight control double-aught buck. These two were the easiest to recover, the copper-plated, which is obvious. The lead buckshot was very difficult to recover, and one thing that I'll show you in a second is that a lot of the lead buckshot fused together inside of the wood. I guess because I was shooting at only 5 yards, I'm sure at longer distances the pellets would not do that because the shot pattern would be spread out more. But at closer distances, a lot of the pellets clumped together, and sometimes there was like 2 or 3 or even 4 pellets that were squeezed together into a giant lead mass. But, you know, just looking at the pellets here, you can see that the lead buckshot on the left had a very impressive expansion, okay? And on the top left here, you can see this is the 3-inch Remington Express, just standard lead buckshot. All right, this one actually out-penetrated the copper, and I don't know if that's just inconsistencies with the plywood. Maybe the copper hit some, you know, knots or something like that. But this one actually out-penetrated the copper. And what was interesting here is just look at the expansion on these. These are triple-aught buck. All right, this is a triple-aught buck pellet here, and just look at how it expanded. Okay, this is just absolutely insane, the expansion on this. And it, believe it or not, it did retain a lot of its weight. And I have my reloading scale here, and I'll show you. But I just want to show you guys the expansion on some of these triple-aught pellets here. I mean, you can see this one expanded to almost 3/4 of an inch. Okay. I mean, that is just absolutely impressive here. You know, the soft tissue damage with a lead buckshot is going to be immense. All right, if you hit a soft target with lead buckshot, like a human being or a soft-skinned animal like a deer, the lead is just going to expand and it's going to cause massive trauma. Okay, and that's why the good old-fashioned lead buckshot is so effective. You know, and it's a time-tested design, you know, because lead just, it expands in soft tissue, and you know, having 10 of these pellets inside of you, you know, 10 of these large masses of lead, you know, I don't care what you are, whether you're a human being or a brown bear, that's not going to feel good, you know, and that's going to do some serious damage. So here's one of the triple-aught buck lead pellets. Here's this one got fused together. This is actually 2 pellets together. Okay, and you know, that's because I was shooting at close distances. And let's see if I could show you some other ones here. Here are 2 of the lead pellets here. Okay, triple-aught lead pellets. Okay, that I recovered. You can see that they expanded to, you know, over 1/2 an inch. Okay, almost 5/8 of an inch. All right, and normal triple-aught buck is usually 0.36 inches, all right, in diameter. So, you know, these pellets here expanded to probably almost double their diameter, okay, inside of the wood. All right, so pretty impressive, okay? Just look at that massive pellet there, okay? That's going to do some crazy damage. All right, so here's the lead triple-aught buck. Okay, the big pellets here. They flattened out, as you can see. This one flattened out. It's no longer round. It's flat. Same thing with this one. You can see it has a little bit of the back side of the pellet is still round, but then the front side got flattened out. The side that hit the wood, and you can actually see the wood embedded in it right there. All right, so they mostly flattened out, like this one here. You can see this one got all mangled up. All right, and then here we got 2 of them that fused together. All right, and I'm going to weigh these so you guys can see the weight retention. Now we'll move on to the triple-aught copper plated, which retained more of their shape. And I think these, to me, these were the most impressive out of all of them, because they had a moderate expansion. And, you know, they retained their weight, but they had moderate expansion. So they expanded, but they didn't overexpand, you know, into something like this. All right, where this one probably shed some of its, you know, weight here. All right, but it maintained a lot of their shape was maintained. They didn't really deform too much, except the side that was facing the wood, that was shot into the wood. You could see the, you know, the back sides are still pretty rounded here. Okay, like this one, for example, you can see the front side, that the side that hit the plywood, you know, was got messed up, and then the back side, you know, pretty round. All right, so these were pretty impressive, and I'm going to weigh these to show you guys, you know, the weight retention, but they retain most of their weight. And just to show you guys what the size is here, you know, they probably expanded to almost 1/2 an inch, so they didn't really expand too much. You know, let's see, like this one here, you know, you're looking at, you know, it didn't really expand too much, about 3/8 of an inch. So these had very, very mild expansion. All right, so these were the triple-aught copper plated Winchester XX. Okay, and those were the ones that got stuck in these penetrated 3 sheets of plywood and got stuck in the 3rd sheet. Okay, moving on to the Federal Flight Control, we got the double-aught buck here. All right, and these almost pretty much didn't deform at all. They maintained all of their shape. All right, you can see that there was some slight deformation in some of them, but for the most part they maintain their shape, which is really impressive. The penetration on these was really, I was really impressed by the flight control double-aught buck. The penetration was the best out of all of them. They penetrated, it was the only buckshot that penetrated through 4 sheets of plywood, and actually even penetrated through a 5th sheet of plywood up close. The standard double-aught buck lead was hard to recover, but I did find this one piece here, which was actually 2 pieces fused together. All right, so I couldn't really find many of those. So stand by, guys, and I'm going to do some, I'm going to weigh these with my scale here, my reloading scale, and we'll see what kind of weight retention they had. All right, guys, I'm going to weigh these pellets now. The first thing I have to do is zero out my scale here, reloading scale. This is a 100-gram weight, and I'm going to use it to zero out the scale. You do this every time you use your scale. All right, and you see it says pass. That means that it's zeroed out. Okay, it's ready to use. So, all right, so we're just going to switch to grains now. All right, we're going to start with the easiest one here, which is the Federal Flight Control, and these are the double-aught buck. Okay, in case you guys don't know, double-aught buck weighs 53 grains, and triple-aught buck weighs 70 grains. Okay, so here's one piece, 47 grains. Okay, not bad. That's almost, 95% weight retention. Here's another one, 47 grains. Very good. All right, here's another one, probably going to be similar, 47 grains. Okay, let's see, 48 grains, 47.4, 46. Okay, so most of these double-aught, sorry for the camera, most of these double-aught buck pellets weighed between 46 to 48 grains, and normally they're 53 grains, so they lost very little weight. That's very, very good. We're going to move on to the triple-aught buck now. Triple-aught buck Winchester, double X, which you see here. Okay, we're going to move up to the triple-aught buck copper-plated. All right, and let's see how much these guys weigh. Normally they weigh 70 grains. So pretty good, 67 grains on this one, 67 grains on the other one, 67.1, 67.1, 66.1, 66.7, and this one had 52, okay? Wait, this one actually, I'm sorry, this one actually might be a triple-aught buck, a double-aught buck lead one. I'm sorry, mixed them up. All right, so the triple-aught buck copper-plated retained pretty much 99% of its weight. Normally they're supposed to be 70 grains each pellet, and these were 66, 67 grains. All right, so very impressive weight retention on the copper-plated buckshot. And guys, just look at this pellet here. Okay, I mean this pellet is just, these pellets are absolutely massive. Okay, 70 grains each, and they have 10 pellets, so you're getting hit with 700 grains of lead, all right, in one shot. Okay, that is absolutely a monstrous amount of lead being pumped into a target. Shotguns are just so devastatingly powerful. Moving on to the 3-inch triple-aught buck Remington Express 100% lead shot. Let's see how much these weigh. 69 grains, guys. So this one actually retained a lot of weight, even though it's all mangled up, and the shape is kind of weird. It retained, only lost 1 grain through 4 sheets of plywood. All right, here's the next piece. This looks like 2 pieces fused together. So, because it's 137 grains, so if you divide that by 2, you got to figure, what is that, 68 grains each, so still very good weight retention. Here's another one, 68.9, 68.7, okay, very interesting. So, the lead had very good weight retention, actually even 1 or 2 grains better than the copper. which is interesting. And I wonder if that's just because the copper is more brittle and it'll break off easier in wood versus lead is soft. So when it hits something, it'll just deform and flatten out. Versus something that's more brittle, like this copper plated, will flake off and break off and shed more of its weight. I don't know. But that's very impressive results with the lead. 100% lead triple-aught buck. Now we're going to go to the standard double-aught buck. Here's a double-aught buck pellet from the 2 3/4 inch Remington Express. And you can see that it, compared to the copper plated, all right, you can see the difference in the deformation. The copper plated pellet pretty much, stayed the same shape, and the lead pretty much deformed. If you look at how it folded over around the sides there, okay, so very interesting result there, okay. So I don't know if you guys can see that a little bit better. Let me zoom the camera in. All right, so here you have the 2 3/4 inch flight control double-aught buck, and then here you have the regular lead. All right, you can see how it expanded and the lead kind of folded around the edges, all right, from the impact. All right, so let's weigh this one here and see what happens. So 52 grains on this one, so very impressive. It only lost 1 grain, very impressive. That may actually be better than the copper plated. The copper plated only 47. So it actually retained more weight than the copper plated. Unless these copper plated pellets are not using the full weight of a normal double-aught buck, because of the copper plating. Copper is lighter. That's what I'm thinking, is that maybe they're not 53 grains, maybe they're like 50 grains or 48 grains, because copper is lighter than lead. So it might be just a touch lighter because they're using less lead, a little bit less lead in these copper plated pellets. All right, so impressive results. And then here we have 2 double-aught buck lead pellets that fuse together. Okay, look at that massive lead, and that one is 104 grains. So almost 100. That's 2 pellets probably split in half. You're looking at, what is that, 52 grains, 52 and a half grains, something along those lines. Very impressive. Okay, so that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope that you learned something about buckshot. I think the next buckshot test I'm going to do is I'm going to do 3-inch, 3-inch double-aught buck versus 2 3/4 double-aught buck. And we're going to see how much more the 3-inch will out-penetrate the 2 3/4. All right, and we'll do that for double-aught buck and triple-aught buck to see the difference. So that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.